Most Go high-level websites look good but convert terribly. So in this video I'll show you the exact structure agencies use to build high-converting Go high-level websites so you can turn visitors into leads and of course into clients. But first let's start with a few common mistakes that you really need to avoid. The first one being too many call to actions. So you've probably seen websites that have a lot of different call to actions. For example, get started buttons, call us now, or sign up for our newsletter, or get free something right now. If you use a ton of different call to action buttons on your website, people will get confused and they won't know what the next step is in the process of starting to work with you, basically. So let's take this page for example. It's a very simple page, but it will get the job done. We only have one main call to action, which is get started, and we have the same button throughout the website. Obviously, it has just 3 sections built for demonstration purposes only, but if I were to add even more sections, I would just keep the same call to action, which is get started. Of course, we also have this sign in button, but this obviously is used for logging into your account on the website. So it doesn't really count as a call to action because you don't have an account. So you need to make an account by clicking on get started, right? So you get a point. Don't use too many call to action buttons, otherwise people will get confused and they won't know what the next step is. The next mistake is that there is no clear product or service or offer on your website, right? So going back to this example, we have a very simple headline, your AI copilot for smarter workflows. So people will instantly know when they reach this page that this website sells an AI agent for building smarter workflows. And of course, you can read the sub headline as well. Another really good headline would be get qualified leads every month. Not necessarily useful for this particular website, but that's a very good and clear headline / offer that people will instantly recognize and they will know what your website is about. If you start your hero section with a long story or something that users need to think about in order to understand what your website is about, then you will lose them. The next mistake is poor layout. Your website needs to follow a proven structure, otherwise people will get confused. You cannot have a FAQ section right after the hero section. The next mistake is not using social proof on your website. So if you want to have better conversions, you need to have social proof on your website. So for example, this website doesn't have any social proof. So the first thing that I would do to improve its conversion rate, I would add a slider with testimonials or case studies. I would add counters with how many companies we've worked with, how many dollars in revenue generated or something like that. I would even add a logo carousel with past businesses that will also improve the social proof on this website, and of course it will improve the conversion rate. And the last mistake is that people don't build Go high-level websites with mobile optimization in mind. So if your website is not optimized for mobile, then you are missing out on a lot of conversions because a lot of people are checking out websites on their phone, are navigating and browsing on their phones. So this one is extremely powerful, and we are gonna talk a bit more and I'll show you some examples in just a second because we have more sections to check out. Now let's move on to a proven structure that you can follow in order to build high converting Go high level websites. So obviously the first thing is to have a hero section. Then we can address the problem that our service or our product fixes. Then of course we are gonna talk about the solution and how we approach solving this problem. Then we can talk about benefits, social proof, and I'll show you in just a second some really cool techniques and really cool sections that can be used to increase the social proof on your website. Then the process, meaning how it works, how you can get our product or how we can work together and how we can apply the solution and so on and so forth. Basically steps or how it works or stuff like that. And then in the end we can have an FAQ section, then a final call to action. Of course you can sprinkle some call to action buttons throughout these sections as well. And then of course the footer. Now let's move on to the perfect hero section, what you need and what you don't need to have on your hero section in order to call it a perfect hero section. So the first thing, as I mentioned earlier, it has to have a clear headline. So people need to understand right when they come onto your website what you're selling. Otherwise they will get confused and they won't care about your website or your offer and they won't convert. Then you can add a benefit focused headline, just like this one. So boost productivity and streamline your daily tasks with intelligent automation. Let our AI assist you in making faster decisions, simplifying workflows, and focusing on what truly matters. Very simple sub headline that basically emphasizes a few benefits. And then of course, a clear call to action. Now, I talked earlier about having some social proof on your website. So what exactly it is that you can add to your website to increase the social proof? So we can add a logo carousel, just like this section right here. We have trusted by 50 plus companies, and then you have logos. Well, this is just the same logo, but you get a point. You just replace it with other logos from businesses that you've worked with in the past. Or you can add counters. Make sure that these metrics actually make sense for your business. So we have 200 plus trusted customers, 50 plus companies, $10 million in profit generated. Those are just placeholder values just for demonstration purposes. And of course, you have this really cool animation when you scroll to this section. So it's even a bit engaging. Then another section with counters that has a different design. Then we have testimonials in the form of a infinite slider. So you can basically go through these testimonials indefinitely. Then this one with autoplay and arrows, ton of examples that you can use. And by the way, all these sections you can get from my Go High Level website library, and you can check it out in the first link in the description. We also have testimonial grids, just like this one with a grid of testimonials or another carousel. Those are all trust sections that can be used to increase the social proof on your website. And now I want to show you on this slider page another really cool one that can be used for case studies. For example, this one is a slider that slides 2 columns at a time, and you have on the right side you have the actual testimonial or the actual case study if you want, and on the left side you can have a picture with the completed project. A very, very powerful section for trade businesses. For example, for a roofing company, you can have the case study or the review in here, and in here you can have the completed roof project, right? Or if you want to build something even more powerful and high converting, you can use this slider, and instead of an image on the left side, you can use this before and after slider. Extremely powerful section, and combined with this one, it's absolutely amazing. So you have this slider with the before project and then the completed project, and then you also add in the review in here, which will be an absolute game changer for your website. And of course, there are even more ways of implementing social proof onto your website. For example, adding a review next to the call to action section, just like this one. This one also has a demo. Maybe you want to see a video and then a sign up button, plus the review in here to increase the conversion rate for this particular call to action section. Now let's talk a bit about the mobile optimization. In my opinion, the mobile is very important, but I would also add in here the iPad and basically absolutely all resolutions. So this is how this particular page looks on mobile. Everything is fully optimized, and we are talking about big enough buttons that people can actually click, mobile that actually works on mobile. Then the animations are pretty decent on mobile as well. Again, buttons that are big enough for your fingers basically, and then consistent padding throughout the website. As you can see, everything is already fully optimized and works really well and looks good on mobile as well. Maybe the spacing in here doesn't look that good, but that can be fixed. But the paddings, as you can see to the sides, are consistent throughout the website. Even for the footer in here, we have good padding, and this is only on mobile, but we can stretch this screen and we can get the iPad version, which again is fully optimized. So it's very important that you check your website, check the functionality, check how it looks on all resolutions, not only on mobile and desktop, because many people will also check out the website on their tablets, for example. So you don't want to miss a few conversions from there as well. So yeah, no matter how I stretch this window, the website will be optimized. So this is a very important factor to keep in mind. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is about having fast loading speed for your website. So the first thing in order to have fast loading speed is to optimize your images and videos. So you don't want to use PNGs all over the place with 4K resolutions and beyond, because that will definitely impact your loading speed. So I have this table right here that has a few formats. For example, for logos and icons and even simple illustrations, you can use SVJs. Very powerful format that scales really well because it's vector based. So it's very good for logos and icons especially, but of course you can also have simple illustrations in SVJ format. Very powerful format and takes very little space, especially for logos and icons. And for photos you can use JPEG, but of course if you really need to use some transparent images, you can use PNGs, but make sure they are optimized and they don't have crazy resolutions that can impact your loading speed. The next thing is to limit custom scripts. I know custom JavaScript animations look really cool, but make sure that if you have the same animation 10 times on your website, you don't have 10 different scripts. Make sure that you only use one script for all that animations and only use JavaScript that is really necessary. And the next thing is to minimize animated sections. You don't want everything to fly in, fly out, fade in, fade out, all the images to rotate and everything to animate, because that's firstly gonna impact your loading speed, and then secondly it will hurt the perceived value of your website, because premium websites don't have animated sections everywhere. They use animations sparingly and intentionally. So this is basically how you can create high converting go high level websites. Now if you want to use AI to build these websites, Make sure you watch this video in which I tell you how not to use AI in order to build Go high level websites.